Chronometry calibrated. The gateway will open in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Analyzing data. Likelihood of parallel universes now at 8%. Continuing analysis of the many worlds hypothesis.
The podcast is in our hands. It's left to us, guys. And we got to do something with it. Otherwise, Kevin Feige should have killed all of us. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Gay Fesh. Joining me, as always, is the lovely Moss.
Hello.
And DemonMama.
Hello.
And today, we have finally arrived. We have, after months and months and damage to DemonMama's psyche, we have finished Captain America's journey in the MCU, which is funny because we're recording this the Monday before there's a new Captain America movie coming out. But, it's okay. It's not Steve Rogers. It's the other guy. But we are today talking about Avengers Endgame, which many are saying is the actual end of the MCU, and everything after that is just like extra credit that you don't need to watch and probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
So we'll just leave it here for now. I mean, I'm saying Captain America 4 anyway, whatever. But, I'm not everybody.
I hope you enjoy it at least.
Doctor Strange 2 was good. I'll say that.
I mean, there was like... I mean, we're not talking about that movie,
we're not.
I wouldn't have anything to say about that because I didn't see either of the Doctor Stranges.
The thing that Doctor Strange 2 had going for it was that it was directed by Sam Raimi, right?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
But like it still has a lot of the Marvel issues.
Sure.
It's just like if you're going in there to be like, okay, look, I know that this is going to be a Phase 4 Marvel movie, so there's all the Phase 4 problems. But if I'm just going to see Sam Raimi do schlock, it's good for that.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Me, when Disney asks me if I want to see any of the amazing other Avengers content that comes after Endgame, no, I don't think I will.
You've been waiting for that one, haven't you?
Oh, I finally have it. And the context has... I was worried that it was going to make it less funny to me, but it actually has made it even more funny to me.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait.
DemonMama, since you are the newbie to Endgame, what are your first thoughts?
We were about 20 minutes into the movie, and I sort of exclaimed out loud, "Oh my God, this is an actual movie." And it was an actual movie. I actually had a pretty good time with Endgame. There are still some things that I didn't like about it. Most of them are things that I like, problems that I have with the overall like Marvel storytelling process. But this movie is such a massive step up from Infinity War. It is like, I was shocked, and I'm glad that they decided to put their all into this one. Like, I especially I think the thing that I noticed the most about this movie versus the one that came right before it, which is Infinity War, was just that like the characters actually had emotional things to do. They were actually expressing themselves, and there was emotional poignancy on display for a lot of the characters. I thought the time traveling premise was much more interesting than just sort of like galactic space war. I don't know. I thought this movie did everything that Infinity War did, but better. So they should have probably just done Endgame and had it be that one. But I actually had a pretty good time with this movie. The one I've liked the most since Civil War. And it felt like watching an actual movie, which I enjoyed. Why the hell were they so mean to Ant-Man?
Okay, because he's like kind of a jokey character to begin with. Like,
but what the hell? They were so mean. Everyone's so mean except for Hulk.
Well, okay, so consider that Ant-Man hasn't developed this technology, right? He's the second Ant-Man. Michael Douglas's character was the original Ant-Man, but who had already retired by the time of the MCU. So Scott is kind of a dumbass. Scott is just, he was picked to be Ant-Man because he is a cat burglar, because he has a particular set of skills that make it useful for him in the suit. But he doesn't know how the suit works. He doesn't make PIM particles. So for this guy whose highest credit has been like stealing from, some rich assholes, to show up and be like, guys, I'm gonna time travel, and it's like, oh yeah, okay, Scott, sure, yeah. you do that.
They're so mean to him. They're so.
I would say it's also that he just kind of like the only experience that we have like on this podcast and that they have with him as a person is the events of Civil War, because like having not watched Ant-Man 1 or 2 for this thing, like if we had, we would have all this information about them, but lacking that information, it's just like, okay, this is some dude who showed up at the airport in Germany and like messed with all of our stuff here and like interfered in our interpersonal things. So like for certain members of the team to be cold toward him makes specific sense in that context, given that they were on opposite sides of a conflict and they're like, I literally don't know you except that we fought against each other that one time. That's what I would say.
They just bully him a lot is all I'm saying.
Yeah. There's an idiot in the landing area, whatever. Yeah, it's like...
Hulk didn't bully him. Hulk gave him those tacos.
I was going to say the tacos. That was one of my favorite moments in the movie. I'm like, oh, yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah.
It's probably... that one got memed pretty much immediately. This movie was like... When did Vine die? 2017?
Oh, God.
This movie was like... This movie came out when people were still making Vine compilations on YouTube, and like I remember that the Endgame Vine compilation, like people just taking Vines that reminded me of things from Endgame. There's like 2 taco themed Vines. There's like the guy who's like, oh, boy's got his free taco, and then he trips and falls and smashes it. But then there's another one where a guy's like, I got 2 free tacos. So both of those taco related Vines were in that one scene. Opening the movie by killing Hawkeye's entire family, that is so fucking brutal.
It was so good.
And also, like, I think they made the right choice by opening the movie with that. Originally, that scene was shot to be at the end of Infinity War.
Yeah, I'm so glad that they moved it.
Which is like, okay, so like, oh, the first time we see Hawkeye is right at the end. Thanos has snapped, and then we're going to Hawkeye's family. And like, what's Hawkeye doing here? I mean, it would still, like, if you established it that, like, yeah, no, I think setting it up, it reminds you what happened, shows what's going on to just people who aren't even like, Hawkeye is retired right at this point. He's not doing any avenging. He's just a guy living his life. And then all of a sudden everyone dies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really sets the tone in a way that
I think it did better than the entirety of the end of Infinity War.
Well, and also like, I remember predicting exactly this happening. I remember at the end of Infinity War, like I walked out and I was just thinking, like, Hawkeye's not in this movie. I'm like, well, he's got to be in the next movie. I bet his whole fucking family died. I just like immediately was like, yeah, his whole family died. That would be the worst thing they could do to him. And it would really up the stakes for him and be a gut punch. Because we know everyone's coming back because they snapped Spider-Man and they've already announced the next Spider-Man movie coming out. So like there's, a meta level of course they're not really dead. They're not going to really kill Black Panther, the most popular superhero that they've got at that point. Yeah. That being said, I like Hawkeye a lot in this movie. He definitely goes through it. But I will say that my girl Nat got done dirty. Got done fucking dirty on Vormir. It should have been Clint. Clint should have been the one to die. I'm just saying.
Like, I mean, she made it happen. She won that battle.
She did. She won that battle. But I'm just saying, like, it's not like Black Widow is a real person with real agency. This was a choice by the writers that Black Widow would be the one to die. And I need to point out that up until they start doing the time heist, Black Widow has been the leader of the Avengers for 5 years because everyone else just kind of went. She's the one holding down the fort. She's the one running things. And we don't get to see that because in the Black Widow movie that they made, which, came out after this, but obviously it had to be set before she died, they decided instead of focusing on, hey, what was she doing leading the Avengers during the events of the blip? No, it's her right after Civil War instead. And so we don't get to see her lead the Avengers at all. And now she's dead.
Yeah.
And I have to stress the fact that they're like really laying it on thick. It's like, no, she's definitely dead. She's absolutely dead. The stones can't bring her back. There is no way to bring her back. It's like, okay, I can understand you insisting that, but you brought Gamora back.
True, from the alternate universe, right?
I mean, it's an alternate universe version of her, but they brought her back. You can bring back, like, you could just literally step to the next universe over and grab their gnat and not tell her. Like, just she could be asleep and you just move her from her bed there to her bed here. She wouldn't know anything was different.
We're getting to Rick and Morty levels of shenanigans.
I'm just saying that if you're going to insist that hard that dying for the Soul Stone means you can never come back, don't bring back the person who famously died for the Soul Stone last movie.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, that's true.
Also, speaking of the Soul Stone, still goddamn one of the funniest things ever is having that stupid fucking Red Skull floating there. I still could, like, in Infinity War, when it was like there's like the Nazgul, I'm like, okay, just it's going to be evil guardian spirit, and he's like pulls back the mask and it's Red Skull. I literally laughed out loud, and I was like, oh, they're going to bring it back in this movie, and of course, oh my god, it's just too good.
I will say that there was some cowardice in this movie in that, you know, they send Steve to go and return all of the Infinity Stones and stuff, and they just kind of yada yada that, like, we don't see what he's doing. Yeah. But that means that he had to go to Vormir and give an Infinity Stone to Red Skull. I want to fucking see that scene. True. Like, how does that conversation go down? Oh, hey, man. Oh, Captain, I see you're still an Avenger. Yeah, are you still a Nazi? Well, you know, I am telling people to, like, you know, throw somebody off of a cliff, so I'm not a good guy necessarily. But, you know, like, I've had some time to think in the last 70 years since the fall of the Third Reich, and, you know, I don't know. Are Nazis still a thing over there? Well, they weren't, but yeah, now they are. Like, have a conversation like that. I don't know. It's just, it is awkward that scene had to have happened, and they just don't even address it at all. I will also say that the time travel mechanism in this movie makes sense for the most part. Like, you know, every time you time travel, you're actually just stepping into an alternate universe, so you're not affecting the flow of time in your own timeline. That's the most sensible way for it to do it. But then the implication of seeing old Steve there is that he went back into the past and just aged up to the present. But if he went into the past, he wouldn't have gone into our past. He would have gone into a parallel universe's past.
I think the idea that they lay out in the movie is that it creates a new universe when you go back and change things.
Right.
Not that it is a different universe.
Well, I mean, what's the difference? Creates a new universe, is a new universe. It's like, it's the same thing. The point is, the universe where he goes back in time and hooks up with Peggy is not, you know, as it's later called, the sacred timeline, the main MCU universe. So even though Cap, like, missed his window or something, he doesn't show up there, he still would have had to use the Pym particles to come back to the main timeline as an old man to sit there on that bench, because he would have been in an alternate universe.
Or that's someone else's Steve.
Or wait, did he use the Infinity
In order for
Stone
that to be someone else's Steve, that means that Peggy Carter had married that Steve and was hiding it from everyone, including Steve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole premise.
I'm just saying, like, when you start to peel back the layers, I'm like, okay, that part doesn't make sense. I will also say that I think that they explained time travel too many times in this movie. Pretty much any time a new character, like Thanos in the past with like Nebula and Gamora and everyone, they're like, I think they explained the time travel aspect of Nebula, like Thanos and everyone explains that like fucking 3 times to Gamora. Like, it was excessive. And also Hulk's explanation for why going back in the past doesn't change things in the present could have been worded better. It was pretty awkwardly worded. And like, you know, I was on board because I already know the multiverse theory of time travel, but I don't know, just it was confusingly worded. And then you also had the ancient one, Tilda Swinton, explain time travel to the Hulk, who explained it to other people. So I don't know, like, it just, there's a lot of explanation of time travel, and it's, I understand that this movie is for very general audiences, a lot of whom are going to be dumb and not understand the mechanics of
Or
time
literal
travel.
children.
But do they literally need to
Children,
explain it every single time it comes up? Like maybe twice. I could take twice, but they'd like at least 4 or 5 times.
At a certain point, you kind of just have to accept that time travel is a thing
Yeah.
in the universe and stop trying to worry about how it works.
Yeah.
Like we've established that you won't disappear from the photo Back to the Future style. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Move on.
Which also got to point out, Alan Silvestri did the music for this movie. He also did Back to the Future. So this is like his 4th blockbuster time travel movie.
That's awesome.
Time travel master.
Yep.
Yeah. So, okay. Something that I was just thinking of since we were like starting to get into the meat of the movies here. So I really liked that they introduced, like, in the early part of the movie, there's all like the how did it shake out for everybody type stuff, where it's like, you know, you see like Hulk is actually kind of like coping kind of well because of everything that happened allowed him to reconcile with the Hulk part of him, and now he's got like a consolidated identity that's like healthy and he's thriving. I love that. I really liked the like Tony Stark's daughter, and all of that was great. Although I will say it was an odd move for them to do after like, and I think it just nails home how like incompetent Infinity War was with trying to sell the relationship between Spider-Man and Tony Stark as like this like surrogate father type thing, because in just the time that we have in this movie with his new child, like it's immediately more emotionally present and relevant and immediate than when Spider-Man comes back and it's just like, oh, I'm so happy you're back. But like the whole rest of the movie, he's like worrying about his kid. Like, I don't know. It's just, but overall,
one other thing with Tony, like, because I'm just thinking then this kind of springboards, because like one of the few things that the movie does to, you know, reestablish Tony's guilt over losing Peter is when he's washing the dishes and then he accidentally sprays like a picture, and it's a picture of him and Peter. And DemonMama, you're gonna get this reference, but Tony of all people should know that it is far more environmentally efficient to just use the dishwasher.
True.
No, I'm on this train. I am.
Because DemonMama and I watched a Technology Connections video. You've seen that video?
My partner watched it and then evangelized
so
to me, and I'm converted.
Yes, no, I am a dishwasher evangelist. And like, I was talking to my mom about this, and she's like, well, you know, because he's like trying to live more, you know, like down to earth, like he's, you know, got like a cabin in the woods. And it's like, okay, but he still has like a giant computer that is like calculating how to do time travel. It's not like he's off the grid. Like she literally said off the grid while he is staring at the grid. And I'm just saying that for a guy who has his entire life used machines to automate things so that he doesn't have to do them, to have him hand wash dishes as a way to like return to his roots, when that's like one of the ways that it's like, okay, you're actually using more resources by doing it yourself than by letting the dishwasher do it. I'm just saying, man.
But there's also half as many people on the planet, so who cares?
Okay, so that makes it all right. Okay, yeah, gotcha.
I am a materialist.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I liked, I did like all the like getting to see the actual effects of what happened in the last movie. It makes me just go like, well, it feels like they could have done that in the movie where all these events happened, but also it's like, I don't know. That's just the organization of this whole Marvel experience is just, it's odd. But there's another thing I really liked in this movie that also comes with a critique, which was I really liked the Thor, all of the stuff with Thor. Basically, seeing new Asgard and seeing him kind of like checked out and just like, you know, hit rock bottom kind of, but in like a way where he's got his little pad with his friends, you know, where they're like, you know, coping together and then
yelling at 12-year-olds on Fortnite.
Yeah, getting yelled at and then yelling back at them. Yeah, and that was all very funny and fun. But then I really enjoyed the part where Thor goes to Asgard and gets to talk to his mom, and I thought that was like attentive to the details of the world in a way that was like nice, where it's like, oh yeah, this is an oracle. Like, she's not surprised by any of this. She doesn't want to know the details. She's just supportive of him and is able to have this like extremely it cuts through all of everything that's going on, this incredibly intense like mother-child, connection. And it felt like it had soul. And I liked that. I was like, damn, I really enjoy that they put this scene in here.
And I noticed that, like, it wasn't just like Thor goes back in time to get therapy from his mom. Tony goes back in time to get therapy from his dad. And I was just like, boy, everyone's going back in time to get therapy from their parents. Well, not Nebula, not so much.
No, not so much.
No, not so much. Although, like, I would say for Nebula, it's more reconnecting with her sister. Which,
healing that wound.
My criticism of, bringing back Gamora if you're going to kill off Black Widow notwithstanding, that's a separate issue. But but yeah, I will, like, these Avengers will literally like go back in time to steal magic stones rather than go to therapy.
It's true. Also, I want to give a shout out. First gay MCU character.
It was one of the directors too. It was
oh, was it?
Yeah, I think that was Joe or Anthony. I don't remember which one. I'm gonna look up.
Nice.
Wait,
right at the beginning of the movie.
The opening, yeah, the group therapy session. With,
he's like, I went on a date. He cried at this point, and I cried at this point, and it's like, okay, cool, gay character.
Yeah, it was Joe Russo.
Yeah. Oh, we did it. We did it. You get it in like a side mention that,
with Eternals, we get like an actual gay superhero with Phastos, but nobody watched Eternals, so who cares?
I don't care about the TV shows. Sorry.
No, this was a movie.
Well, oh my God. Wow. Cringe.
Yeah.
I don't care about Phase 4, I guess, is more accurate than.
There you go.
Yeah, so I really liked that scene with Thor's mom. I didn't like the scene with Tony's dad as much, partially just because it felt like, and I don't know, maybe they were trying to make a statement about Tony or whatever, but which seems to be the thing about Tony the whole time. It seemed like it was less advancement, and also especially like put next to what Cap was going through at the same time, which is this like horribly painful, he's on the other side of like one-way glass or whatever, and all he can do is look at this like woman that he loves, and that like, and there's like an almost invisible boundary between them. It was like, and then it goes to like this very like silly and false pretense like interaction between. It's a one-way interaction where like Stark knows it's his dad, but his dad doesn't know it's him. So they're not really like connecting or able to actually connect even still. And so they're like kind of able to talk through some things and have this. It was odd in comparison to the other ones that they did, especially because like there was so much of like, oh yeah, you don't want to tool around and mess with the other timeline too much.
Mostly, I think it mostly just served to give Tony some closure. He got to say goodbye to his dad, like, properly, because we saw in Civil War, he had made that whole, like, false memory of him saying it because he never got to. So this gives him that closure. He gets to share that he's got a daughter with his dad, even if his dad doesn't realize that's what he's being told. But it's for Tony. It's cathartic release for Tony, especially because he's gonna die. So this movie is kind of capping up his all his threads and letting him die a complete person.
I guess I just didn't feel, and maybe this is just because I haven't watched the Iron Man movies in a bit, but I kind of feel like I didn't know what he was getting closure on. I'm like, I feel like, it's not like it's not like you had a bad relationship with your dad. I mean, like, yes, he did kind of when he was younger, but it feels like he has worked through that already because he's like, I love my dad so much. I miss him. I hate you, Bucky. Like, I just kind of felt like maybe that's part of why it fell flat for me is like, what is it that you have left to work through? And maybe too, it's because this entire series spends so much time focusing on Tony that after a while it feels a little bit tired, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can kind of understand it feeling like Cap is going through something like deeply emotional, whereas like Iron Man is kind of going through something that's like, okay, I get it. You're like, it was a good opportunity to do this, but that kind of feels like the only reason why it's in the movie.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think I agree with you. Like it is a little bit of like there's a lot of retreaded ground with Tony Stark as a character through all these movies. It seems like he keeps like encountering and then not learning the same lessons.
Yeah,
And
it's
in this
the
case,
lack of,
it's not really like it's not really on the same thing. Like it's not really like the usual thing is like him having a horrible PTSD reaction and then using that reaction to like inform his gigantic decisions that affect the entire planet. And this one is more just like, okay, so I don't know, it's like a very one-way sense of closure, and especially when just juxtaposed next to the Thor mom conversation and this really like painful scene of Cap and his the love of his life. It felt like it didn't quite land for me, at least. But I guess on a different thing, I did find it like a cute nod to Winter Soldier when they redid the elevator fight, but from like a different setup.
Yeah.
Cap is using speedrun strats when he's on the time heist. He's just like, okay, I've already played this game. I know the cheat codes, so let's skip the elevator fight and then let's exploit a weakness in Cap. To get out of that fight, because like Bucky is alive and he because he knows that would stop him. So it's just him going through. He's like, okay, here's all the things I've learned. They also, because he says Hail Hydra, it gets to reference that bit in the comics, the famous bit where Cap was a Hydra agent or whatnot. So it's that was very cute.
It was good. It was good. Yeah, it was a quality throwback, because there's a lot of like cheap throwbacks in these Marvel movies. And that one was like, okay, they put some love into this one. This was like, all right, cool. That was good.
Even though it was a different elevator, but like all the same people were in the elevator, so it's still.
I do love how often Cap uses subterfuge, because like he also in the movie he makes the phone call to get Pym out of his office. And he like lies and says like, oh no, this thing is glowing in the post office room. You got to come down here. Like I enjoy how frequently Cap is willing to be dishonest in order to accomplish something.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like by the end of this series, like Captain America is one of the most like interesting and character, like he has the most, I don't know, concrete, like who is this guy and what does he do? And he doesn't feel like a flattened out one note character. And I really like that. I also will say like by the end of the series, Thor is like a standout. Like he gets a lot of good stuff with
I
him.
love Thor's whole story. This movie, I connected to it a lot. As somebody who has, dealt with, hitting rock bottom and trying to pick yourself back up and stuff like that. I remember there was a lot of discourse when this movie came out. A lot of people thought that he was just one like long running fat joke. And it's not to say that they weren't making fat jokes that movie that were probably excessive, but I don't think that was the focus of it. And like, I especially like he finds out he's still worthy even when he's at his lowest. And when he goes and like does the lightning to magically transform himself to get ready to fight Thanos, he doesn't lose the weight. He magically braids his beard, but he doesn't lose the weight. He's still him. And I really appreciate
Thor. I think he looks great.
Yeah, I wish they'd kept it for Thor 4. I think that would have been better, but no, they have him lift weights off screen or something. So I absolutely love Thor's story. There is a funny moment where Tony calls him Lebowski.
Yep.
And we didn't watch this one for the show, but the first Iron Man movie, the villain was Jeff Bridges.
Yeah.
So anytime there's some kind of crossover like that in a movie where somebody is referencing, a movie that happened, is like, wait, but you've got an actor from that movie in this thing. Did they just go, oh yeah, I kind of look like that actor, or in this universe was that role played by a different person? Because did anybody see the movie Last Action Hero? It was a '90s Schwarzenegger
Yeah, I've seen that
film,
one. Yeah.
where Schwarzenegger was playing like a character that in universe Arnold Schwarzenegger plays. He is a movie character, and a kid gets a magic ticket that allows him to enter into the movie universe. And the kid is very genre savvy, and so he's able to like navigate a lot of the stuff. But they're like in a Blockbuster, and there is a Terminator poster, but in this movie universe, like they had Stallone play Terminator instead, so that they don't have to they don't have to run into that issue of, well, why would hang on, I'm that guy, why does that guy look like me? They did something to address that. So it's just something I think about.
I thought it was cool and more interesting to have them battling the normal Thanos, you know, the like armored Thanos that's not like this movie. It had a better balance of like knowing when to be absurd and over the top than the other than I can't help but compare it to the part one, which is Infinity War. Like it was just like the time travel stuff is like, okay, now we're doing some fun things that are the result of having stones that can completely alter reality and time and all that. Now we're doing some wild and crazy things, and that's cool. And then at the end, it's like, okay, now for these battles, you've got a little bit more like limited characters to a degree. And you have, you know, you see their kind of their like might and their ingenuity come into play a little more. And there you get to see, you know, oh, he's got this space empire. That's where his power comes from. You know, when we first see, you know, in Infinity War, the first real confrontation with him is just like he's already got like half the stones. Like, so you don't actually see like what made Thanos capable of being a threat in the first place. And in this movie, because they've gone to the alternate timeline where he doesn't have all the stones, you get to see that. It's just a better decision, I think. It just makes you actually get like a little more of like okay, this is an intimidating empire guy. This is an emperor who's a powerful and cunning and bloodthirsty guy. And yeah, I don't know.
That's interesting because like I think generally like the consensus has been that Thanos is a far weaker character in this movie. Like weak in terms of writing, not obviously he doesn't have the Infinity Stones, so he's weaker in that regard. But yeah. He comes across more as just kind of your standard Saturday morning cartoon villain who wants to be evil because he's bad. Whereas Infinity War, he had like he was on a spiritual quest to achieve his goals.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like in Infinity War, I mean, they give him a ton of time, but like
he's the main character.
But it's also like Infinity War, yeah, he's the main character of Infinity War for sure. But also, so in Infinity War, he is more complete, I guess, as a character, although his motivations are still not kind of nonsensical because of the way that they decided to write what he's trying to do. But I feel like he is more interesting as a villain in the second one, like in that role of villain, like as not as a central character. I don't know, that maybe that doesn't make sense. What I'm trying to say is
like
I think
he's more of a villain and less
more
sympathetic, so he's a better antagonist in that way.
Yeah. And but also like it's just like the movies are not like Infinity War is undercut by the fact that you're going, okay, yeah, this guy has a lot of emotional investment in his quest for doing this thing, but his reasons don't really make a lot of sense. And so you keep being reminded of that. And I guess what I'm saying is like, if the movie is going to be a lot of punching and a lot of stuff like that, then make a guy who sells that part of it. Make him the, you know, and we get to see that, in my opinion, in Endgame. You get to see this is a guy who built a space empire. He uses these giant, you know, starships and that could bombard a planet. And he's got all this. I just found that a little more interesting to me because I find it hard to truly be invested in Thanos as a character when his goals are just, they're just not thought through to the point that there's like actually depth to be engaged with. Like you can't really go, okay, so this guy just didn't think to double all the resources in the universe. Like,
and he also killed a lot of the resources because animals are a resource. It's like,
yeah, of course. Like,
also something just occurred to me for the very first time, and I have to say something about it. So we see this other Thanos during the time in which he is actively doing a direct bloody culling he's doing his intentions with the Infinity Stones before he actually has them, right? So each planet he goes to, he like kills half the people, but then his timeline continues and he eventually snaps. So there are a bunch of planets out there that have now been brought down to a quarter of their original population.
Well, and that doesn't get addressed a lot too, but like he had to have done that to the Asgardians. So the Asgardians are actually down to like a quarter of their original people. Because when he attacks the Asgardian ship, first off, a bunch of the Asgardians died just with the whole events of Ragnarok.
Yeah.
Well, before even
Ragnarok,
Thanos, with Ragnarok, they destroyed Asgard. Like they got a bunch of people off, but I'm sure they didn't get everyone. Like all of Asgard fit in that one little ship. You kidding me? So there's that. They've lost their home world. A bunch of them have died because Hela killed like their army, and then Thanos shows up and kills half of them, and then they get snapped. So like the Asgardians are like a shell
decimated
of their former selves. Like it's like almost like an invert, because like the literal definition of decimated is to remove
one out of every 10. Yeah,
right. So this is more like the reverse of that. They've lost most of their people by a like significant stretch, and like I love the scene in New Asgard. It's like, oh yeah, they are really struggling. Although the one thing that kind of bothers me with that is that why are they all wearing Earth fashion on New Asgard? Like, did they lose every single one of their artisans? Do they not have any tailors on that ship? Are they all just like, did they just completely lose their culture when they came over here? They didn't bring any of that with them. So they're all just...
one of the things about genocide and displacement.
Yeah.
And if we're talking about that level of numbers, I guess it could make sense that they just don't have anybody who knows how to replicate that stuff.
They might not have any fashion designers or whatever. Or the materials too.
I loved, just a side note, I absolutely loved Thor's sweater. I was like, I want that sweater. It looks so cozy. Yeah. The fisherman sweater, it's so nice.
So I saw this movie opening weekend, and the Thor's line, "I went for the head," got like a really big laugh.
I don't think that's appropriate.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, and apparently, the directors have said that line almost always gets a big laugh, and it's like, okay, but they failed. Thanos destroyed the stones after snapping, so they aren't getting anybody back. Thor killing Thanos at that point did nothing. He
didn't even release him from his fear.
No, he's terrified to hear Thanos' name 5 years later.
Yeah.
So like, I kind of understand where the laughter comes from like a bit of a nervousness, or just like maybe the expectations being set up in the MCU that it's usually lighter and funner. And so, he went for the head, but like, then they hit you like literally, "I went for the head" was the last lines you hear before they hit you with 5 years later. So maybe it's that like, there's a line that is ostensibly funny because it's, echoing what Thanos said, he should have gone for the head. But then it kind of just sits in that, they aren't bringing them back. They actually did fail.
I mean, I think part of it is just, I don't want to be too mean, because I do kind of, part of me just goes, it's dumb audiences that don't like pay attention to the emotional things, which has been cultivated. I'm not just blaming the audience for that. That's a cultivated audience by Marvel. Marvel has this problem.
They've been conditioned.
Of just weird, thoughtless tonal shifts and constant quipping and all this stuff where just things can't breathe emotionally. But I mean, I found that whole scene to be like, that scene was like, it feels terrible. You're supposed to you're supposed to feel terrible in that scene. And I think they do a fairly good job at overall, like within the movie itself, selling the idea that, this is just a lashing, desperate act of violence that has no purpose anymore. It's been completely, I mean, like Thanos looks terrible. He looks pathetic in that moment. He's like a burnt up shell of himself.
He's just
he got cooked and he's just starving.
He's got a limp now. He's like obviously they got the jump on him, but like even so, like he was just not in the same condition to put up a fight. They killed him easily. to go back to the whole Doctor Strange thing where he saw the 14 million alternate timelines. I think that he saw that there was no way to actually stop Thanos, even if they had got the stones away from Thanos. Thanos was strong enough and powerful enough just on his own that he would have killed them and got the gauntlet back anyway. So I think Strange was like, I have to maximize all of the little butterfly effects to make sure that that rat gets in that fucking van. Because the rat activating the van is
that's the kind of
literally
thing.
That's the 1 in 14 million.
That's the only thing that does it. Yeah, that was actually, we were thinking about everything else that was set up, but that was literally the only thing that mattered. That was the one determining factor.
There was like fan art, like somebody had like taken the Endgame poster and replaced every single Avenger with a rat. Like it was just that rat saved the universe.
I just remembered that Captain Marvel was in this movie.
Yeah, she was.
Yeah,
more than a little bit.
Oh my god.
But like she's too powerful. They couldn't have had her in the time heist, otherwise she would have made things too easy. So she has to go off and do space stuff until she can show up right at the end to 1v1 Thanos.
True.
I kind of feel like
I literally I'm not
powerful.
joking at all. I completely forgot that she was even in this movie, and then I just went, oh yeah, I wanted to talk about that.
So what are your thoughts?
I hated her presence in this movie, and it was just it felt really forced. It felt like super corporate product. Like it was where it was like showing the you must have this character. Like I don't know. It's just she had no emotional connection to anything else that any of the other characters were doing.
I also have to point out that Brie Larson filmed this before she filmed Captain Marvel. So this was literally her first MCU thing, and acting with everybody.
Dirty.
So and then she's like barely in the movie, barely interacting with anyone. And so no, the emotional connection there, you're right. It's really not there. Which I think is a perfect segue to lead into the most absurd, unearned, trying to pat yourself on the back moment that makes no fucking sense and is the she's got help scene. Which I talked about a little bit last time. But first off, why the fuck does Captain Marvel need help? She literally just punched a starship out of existence, and you're telling me, oh, there's some mindless space dogs in between her and that thing. She needs all of the women to help her. And I'm just like, okay, if it had been if you had given the gauntlets to anybody else, it's like, okay, let's all, coalesce around them. And say maybe it was because they're trying to get the quantum tunnel up. Maybe it was Wasp who had to grab that and bring it over. And obviously Wasp, what powers does she have? She can shrink and fly. That's it. So then getting everyone around her. But for Carol, she doesn't need the help. That's kind of her thing. She's a Superman. She's not weak. She took a headbutt from Thanos and it didn't even mess up her hair. She's so powerful that it just and then of course there's, the look at all, here's all of our women. And I made this criticism last podcast, but I'll repeat it again. The big moments don't matter if there's no small moments building up to them. None of these characters have had interactions with each other. Okay, you've got Okoye and Shuri who were in Black Panther, but I don't even think Okoye and Shuri had really any scenes.
No, they didn't. Specifically
together. So really the only relationship any of these characters have is Nebula and Gamora.
I guess they worked together a little bit in Infinity War during the battle itself, limited non-emotional interactions.
I'm just saying,
and your point
again, it also, I have to tie this back to how ScarJo got done dirty in this movie. If you're going to celebrate all of the women that you have in the MCU, you just killed one of them off permanently.
Kind of the most important one too, arguably.
Literally the leader of the Avengers.
Yeah.
And she doesn't get to be there for that moment.
As the leader of the Avengers, yeah, it's bad.
She also I don't even really think that they get a proper funeral, Gamora or Black Widow or Vision, really. Like, they have this funeral scene at the end, and this is a big complaint I have. Like, it's very clearly like oriented around Tony, and they give Tony his little thing to the river. But like, there's this like almost little side funeral where Hawkeye and Scarlet Witch talk to each other.
Yeah,
and it just feels very flat and like. Again, like with this thing that the MCU does, like it's not just Joss Whedon, it's the whole MCU, and every director does this where they're like sucking Tony Stark's dick basically, and like all these other characters don't get nearly as much recognition, despite the fact that, like, you know, as you say, they have enormous contributions, like basically leading the Avengers and directing what is left of S.H.I.E.L.D. probably.
Well, and I think like, especially like Scarlett Johansson's performance in this movie, I think she's a really good actor. Like,
yeah,
find me an actor who can cry while eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Like, that is a really fucking hard thing to pull off well. And she does it just like you don't even think she's acting. You're just like, oh God, she's not doing well. Somebody call her.
And the way that she plays the scene with Thanos, when she, like, the desperation of her realizing and like her denial that the Infinity Stones have been destroyed. Oh, so good.
Yeah. ScarJo was done dirty. It should have been Hawkeye. Should have been Hawkeye that went. I'm just saying. I
do agree. And also, I think it's like, we had the same problem with Infinity War that we discussed a little bit, where it's just like killing off Gamora to serve Thanos' storyline. It's like, there's just this constant problem of the, like, in the Marvel movies, of the women characters just getting sidelined or overshadowed, even as the movie like seems to pay like surface tribute to like, yeah, feminism. And, you know, not to sound like one of those people, because I am most certainly not. But it is like, you go, oh God, they really didn't, like, they gave these people a lot of ammo with this stupid shit. It's like having, I don't know, just having the moments like the girls get it done. It really does remind you of the boys, the VOT. Girls get it done.
I need to see this one.
The boys are like, you know, every time they're making like a movie thing, they're obviously parroting the MCU.
Yeah, and they're kind of hitting it. They kind of nailed it on the head. How it is. It's like, she's not standing on her own. Da, 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 da. And then all these like characters who have had no, like Pepper Potts in a Iron Man suit, like, right? It's like what? When, like, okay, yeah. When did that happen? When did we get to see
I know
that?
it's because in the comics,
very end of Iron Man 3.
It's because in the comics, Pepper Potts has a suit and she goes by Rescue when she's in the suit. But like, why the fuck would Pepper ever go in a suit? She hates that part of Tony.
Again, just careless. Just carelessness in the writing of their characters, and a like this desire to like cheaply throw in like a obligatory reminder of their other products and also go, yay, women. And I'm like, well, it would have been nice if you just like gave your really interesting women characters more room to breathe, or gave them the ability to not die all the time on screen and just disappear from the plot. Like, you know, I'm not saying that the movies are the worst ever or that it's universal, like, but it is a recurring thing that we've noticed in these movies, and it's just kind of disappointing. And it feels particularly bad in this one, especially with the like, I don't know, slamming in the like super badass, you know, Captain Marvel, who has no emotional connection to the rest of the staff, and I don't know, just for the rest of the team. It's like, oh man, I don't know what they were thinking. I mean, I know what they were thinking. It was, they have another movie they need to sell. So
yeah, but it's like, I think that it sort of is emblematic in a way of the common like cultural thing. I guess we're easing off of it a little bit just because of the enormity of the backlash, but these like girl boss moments, you know, and it displays a lack of understanding of what representation means for the studio execs and the directors to put in like a girl boss moment. Here's all of our female characters. They're all going to work together for a quick little scene. And like, again, like not acknowledging that these characters Like, it would be nice to have some character representation as opposed to just like a poster, which is how it feels in that moment as you're watching it. And like you pan and like all these women, it's like a poster, it's an advertisement.
Yeah.
And it's virtue signaling in the literal sense. Like, oh, look at us. We have
without
we have
actually doing
women.
the like the background work necessary to give it a real hit. Yeah, exactly.
Any passing of the Bechdel test or like, your primary female character getting canned, getting fridged, really. I mean, it's like she dies so that Hawkeye can have his happy ending.
Oh, I just realized that Clint was paying his wife's phone bill for 5 years.
Right, yeah. I was like, why is her line not disconnected? It should not be operational still.
She just straight calls him and was like, oh, what did they have? Like, I don't know, maybe like they were thinking, well, maybe the Avengers can pull something off and
For
bring
5
everyone
years.
back. So maybe the phone companies are like, we'll maintain these. I don't think so. The phone companies are not benevolent like that.
Maybe by pure chance, all the phone company like executives went out. And so they were just like, the systems were just automating themselves. But
it turns out we didn't need to pay phone bills the whole time. The system just runs itself. Okay, so I have another nitpick, and it's the whole way that the 2014 sequence plays out. Because they time travel, they all go to Morag, where the Power Stone is, and then they send Clint and Nat on the Benatar to Vormir. Clint and Nat don't know how to fly the Benatar. And like they talk about how, oh yeah, it's programmed that all they have to do is not fall out. Okay, that's great. But that doesn't make sense. Why, Nebula, you know how to fly the ship and they don't. Why wouldn't you be like, okay, you guys go find the Power Stone? Like obviously, Nebula and Rhodey don't, they don't love each other. So obviously you needed people with a strong emotional connection, but it's just like, why would you write it that way? Why not just like, okay, we'll go to Vormir. Rhodey and I will take the Benatar to Morag to get the thing. You guys go find the Soul Stone while you're here. It just, that part just doesn't make sense to me, other than to have Clint and Nat have like some alone time while they're on the ship, like talking about, reestablishing their relationship and giving themselves a nice final moment before they go and do the thing. But just like logistically, it doesn't make as much sense. Also, Nebula shouldn't have gotten caught. Like, I understand, like she's about to hit the thing, but then she like fizzes out and she's like, oh no, I have to warn Clint and Nat. And then like they beam up her pod. But once they beam up her pod, well, she still has the time machine on her wrist. Why can't she just hit that to go so that all they've got is an empty pod? Like,
that's a good point. I didn't even think of that.
Nebula should never have been caught to begin with. And also like the thing where she goes to warn Clint and Nat doesn't even pay off. Originally, they had filmed a sequence where Thanos shows up on Vormir, and it's like Clint and Nat have to fight off Thanos' troops while also one of them jumping off to sacrifice themselves. And they decided that kind of cheapened it by having it just be them fighting over who gets to sacrifice themselves for the other one. That I think that made the stakes better. But it also just means that Nebula trying to warn them doesn't mean anything because they weren't in any danger because Thanos didn't come to get them. It just
that's true.
The 2014 sequence like is the weakest part of the whole time heist. I gotta say, and
what a movie!
What a movie!
It was quite a movie.
Series. I mean, I definitely like this one.
It was
more
very
than
serious.
The others.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Can I talk about one more? Well, can I talk about one more thing? Which is, I really wanted to talk about the. No, I don't think I will.
Yeah. Let's bring it back around to Cap.
Yeah, I have a fixation on this. On one of my favorite line from the entirety of all of these movies, and the one that I regularly say for stupid reasons. But it actually is. I was worried that I was going to go, oh man, this context makes it less funny, but it actually is even funnier than I could have imagined. Which is, at the end of everything, Captain America goes back in time. He lives his normal life, kind of, with the knowledge of what happened, but he goes back and he's like, I can have a normal life with a white picket fence and all that. And then he meets up with them as an old guy in the future. But it's so funny. The line is like, Falcon goes over and is like, so you gonna tell us what this is all about? And he's like, no, I don't think I will. and you'd think the movie will end there, but no, he shows. We get to see, but his friends don't for some reason, which just made me laugh so hard. Where it's like, no, he says I'm not going to show you, and then we get to see it anyway, which was just like, okay, so why?
So
are
you're
you
just
saying
leaving Sam in the dark? Is Sam
You're just
like
leaving your best friend in the dark? Like,
also like okay, so you're not making Bucky Captain America, but you are obviously closer friends with Bucky than Sam. Like Bucky is not surprised when Steve doesn't come back because Bucky knows because Steve told him the whole plan.
Bunky Barnes.
So I get like he respects Sam as a friend enough to give him the shield, but not to let him know something personal and kind of majorly important in his life. Like he won't tell him about his wife.
I didn't think that Steve Rogers told Bucky. This is a complaint that I have about this movie. Actually, is that Bucky just seems like a psychic. Like that he just is preternaturally capable of predicting Steve's actions because they don't show a conversation between them. He's just like, I'm about to go on my trip, Bucky. And Bucky's like, bye forever. And it's like, okay, so he just knew somehow. I mean, I guess like, yeah, like based on their prior relationship, but it just was so strange to me. Bucky is so weird in this movie.
He has to shoot a machine gun.
That's his whole deal. That's all he does. That's all he needs to do.
My read is definitely that Steve told him.
All right.
There's definitely a knowing.
Off screen, I'll accept your interpretation.
Yeah, it obviously was off screen, but like there's a note, like they echo their lines to each other from the first movie. Is like, hey, don't do anything stupid till I get back. How can I? You're taking all the stupid with you. Like, and you can see it in Bucky's face. Like he knows Cap isn't coming back. Not like that. Like, and everyone's freaking out over him not coming back, and Bucky just has a knowing smirk and is just like, "Hey, Sam, he's over there." So yeah, no, Bucky knew.
But it's like, it's a question of like
Steve wouldn't have done
make that assumption that they had a conversation about it. Otherwise, Bucky just looks like he's like able to predict Steve's actions to that degree.
And
like,
Bucky
if he has
was
an opportunity,
Steve's,
he's definitely going to stay in the back times.
and Bucky is Steve's oldest friend. They were brothers.
True.
Like that would have been such a shitty thing for Steve to do and not tell Bucky. Sam is like, okay, I can understand, like, he's not as close to Sam, but he has a lot of respect for Sam as a fellow superhero. They are friends, but Bucky is his oldest friend. Bucky's his brother. He told Bucky. That would be unforgivable if he didn't.
Agree. Yeah, okay, that's fair.
You really do have to, once you start thinking about him going back in time, it starts to really unravel everything. Like, it's like, this is Captain America. Like, the US government made this guy. How is he going to go and just be with the founder of S.H.I.E.L.D. in a normal relationship? Like, no, they would know he's there in that time. They'd be like, oh, Captain America, you're here now. Hi, you want to join the Avengers? And he's just like, nah. And then, I don't know, like, it really...
I mean, we don't know...
I know that it's supposed to be like, oh, cool, he gets his happy moment. But it really does kind of mess with the rest of the timelining stuff, where you're like, okay, so there's just two Captain Americas at various points, and...
No, because he didn't go back in time to the main... it would have been an alternate timeline. It's not like he had to hide out from everybody else. Like, this was just a different... Peggy that he married. Like, it was a solid timeline.
I think that everything that the movie says indicates that this is one universe, and that a multiverse would be created if events were not set back in the right order by putting the stones back. So it's like an alternate universe is created and then uncreated.
Okay, but that just like flies in the face of everything else that goes like I'm just saying there is no way to have
multiple times
consistent. Well, and also like. And this goes into like phase 4 stuff, but like, Loki in this movie, he grabs the Tesseract and then disappears. Well, that's the Loki. That's the star of the TV show Loki. Cause obviously the main Loki died, in Infinity War, but, they go into the Time Variance Authority, the TVA, which is like, they're the ones who are maintaining the sacred timeline and pruning all of the, alternate timeline branches and stuff.
Oh, okay.
So like time cops, they deal with some of that other stuff, but it's also like that show gets into some like I enjoyed a lot of that show, but there's some weird stuff that goes into it where like, because Loki is a variant and they're trying to maintain the sacred timeline and trying to prevent the growth of the multiverse, they blame Loki for the change in that timeline when it was obviously the Avengers, and Loki points out, he's like, no, there were time traveling Avengers here. Why are you blaming me? And they're like, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. So it's like, oh, okay. So it's okay when the Avengers violate the sacred timeline because you've decided that they're special and they get to do it. But Loki gets to be punished for creating an alternate timeline that he didn't create. Like, this is a complaint about the show, not about not about Endgame, but just like the broader MCU. Like there's weird things that go into it, and like it just generally speaking, the whole idea to start the whole multiverse saga was a big fucking mistake. Because it robs things of stakes. It like they just bring back people who die. Fair. Literally, they're bringing back Robert Downey Jr. for the next Avengers movie, and we just saw the most recent Avengers movie. So like, nothing means anything. Nobody dies. Except Chadwick Boseman.
No one's ever really gone, to borrow from a popular movie reviewer. No one's ever really gone. But I mean, it's a problem, and I do think that like I don't know. I think time travel stuff can be fun, and there was parts of it in this movie that were fun, but I think it's like you have to, if you try to make it too serious without like, you can't invoke seriousness in a story where there's this many ridiculous nonsense. You have to like sell the emotional seriousness. You can't just be like, this is serious business, can't you see? It's like you're having people like teleport back in time and interact with themselves and get in fistfights with themselves, and then you have this guy become an old man in the timeline. That's the other thing. It can't have been an alternate universe. I was just thinking this through. It can't have been an alternate universe because he ends up in the same one as the one that they all end up in. So
because he still had the time machine. He just didn't use that portal. Like they were able to jump from time to time without using that base station, right? Because that's how they got from 2012 to 1970. So you use the thing and you just jump over to the other universe. So he just lived there, and then I assume once Peggy died, he came back over here and just was like sitting there waiting on the bench for it all to happen. Yeah,
I thought the implication was that he like just waited and was like, okay, it's time for me to show up here. I think that was definitely
probably what the filmmakers were intending too, but I'm just saying that doesn't make sense from the mechanisms of time travel. I'm saying in order for Steve to be there on that bench as an old man, with the logic that this movie established, he would have had to do that.
Anyway, well, when you ask the Marvel writers to make their time travel make sense, no, I don't think I will.
You know what? That's fair. That's fair.
That is fair. Yeah.
All right. Let's get some final thoughts in here. So, Moss?
Yeah. I mean, I think I have watched this movie more than any other of the MCU movies. My partner and I were doing a watch through of the older ones. So I was like, let me just watch the most recent one over and over again. And like, yeah, it might be one of my favorites. Like it's a really strong film. Because it pares down the cast a little bit. I think it's a little bit easier to handle all the different character moments and the character interactions and development. You don't really feel as often. Obviously, DemonMama, you had the like, oh my God, Captain Marvel, I forgot she was even in here, which is the moment that I had in Infinity War where Captain's like, where I know somewhere we can go. And I was like, where is it, Captain? Oh, fucking Wakanda. Of course, I completely forgot about Wakanda's existence.
Yeah.
So this film, I think, did a really good job of setting tone, exploring much more interesting interpersonal themes and dynamics than a lot of other MCU movies. I still respect the bold choice that like Infinity War had our cast lose. And then we are coming back here and it's starting out from this like place of devastation. So there's a ton of room to grow and to like, really go through. Like a lot of the characters have a really strong arc, I guess, is part of what I'm saying here, that like they actually change, they actually develop. A lot of them do anyway, in various ways. So I like this movie a lot, and it probably scores like one of, if not the highest of the MCU movies that we've watched.
All right, DemonMama?
Yeah, so I guess this is kind of going to be my final thoughts on the Marvel stuff as a whole, too, because this is it. So, I definitely did not despise this movie. I hated Infinity War. I thought it was terrible. This movie was enjoyable, enough. But I still think that by the end of this, I ever feel the desire to watch a Marvel movie again. I am very excited that we're going to be doing I'm really excited for the stuff that we have coming up, and I think y'all should be too who are listening. But yeah, this movie was, it had its issues, but it had some emotional attentiveness that the other films often did not. It didn't feel as burdened as its by its need to plug into the other ongoing products, because it was seen as, with the exception of the Captain Marvel thing, but because it was the end. It's the end of this phase, so it got to be its own movie. And these movies are good when they're their own movies, or I don't know if I'd say like they're not great, but they're good. They're like, this is a movie you can watch and get something from, and there's some purpose to watching this. We definitely watched some where I was like, what was the point? But yeah, this one had there were some moments in this that I really enjoyed. I genuinely did enjoy Thor's little side plot. I thought it was heartfelt, and it made sense for his character. It was nice to see. It was like, it played nicely with the lore of the universe. And also I was happy that this movie did not spend too much time in giant punching battles, that there was a lot of different things that these heroes were doing. The time travel stuff was interesting and fresh, and I like that part of it. So I'm glad that they ended on a decent note. The Marvel movies have this carefully painted over cynicism to all of them that I don't like. There's this corporate productness that's just like, oh, we got to make this an advertisement for the 8 other movies we need to sell tickets for, and all that. There's lots of like weird references and nods that I don't always feel are like, they're intrusive in a way that it does not feel organic. And this movie seemed to keep most of that to a minimum, and I appreciated that. But yeah, I guess that's my final thoughts on this and the Marvel series.
All right. And, I have pretty much told people to stop after Endgame. I think, not to say that there's nothing good after Endgame. It's just, like, if you want to get invested in, like, the whole universe, there's really nothing there. Who knows? Like, the future is not written. There's more. We got 3 movies coming out this year, because we got Captain America 4, which by the time this comes out will have already come out, so probably whoever's listening knows more about it than I do at this point. But then we've got Thunderbolts, which just looks like a Suicide Clone ripoff, which itself was a Guardians of the Galaxy ripoff. So we're kind of coming full circle there. And then we've got Fantastic Four, which the trailer for that just dropped. And I like the aesthetic of the trailer, but I don't know. I don't want to quote Hawkeye from this movie, don't give me hope. We'll see. I have been a Marvel fan my entire life. I grew up. My dad had just a huge collection of comics, DC and Marvel, and so I was reading all of these things. So once the MCU started, like I was a pig in shit, and I would like to return to when Marvel was like, when I thought Marvel was good. I'm definitely more cynical now than I was when the MCU started, so I don't know that like I can ever go home, but I don't know. If the day ever comes where I am telling people that they should like pick up the MCU, like you should take that as a genuine sign that things are actually improving, because I am pretty low on these at this point. I'm still going to watch them all, but at some point it just feels like going through the motions. With that being said, that was the end of our first season of the podcast.
We did it.
Yeah, we did it. So, what are next? What are next? Indeed. Well, next, because in April we are going to be having season 2 of Star Wars Andor come out, I figured why don't we go ahead and watch the first season together? Yeah, so we're gonna be doing that.
I am so hyped for this. You have no idea. You guys, y'all are gonna get to hear me be hyped about something, because I appreciate the series.
I appreciate that Moss has not seen it yet, so we will have a fresh perspective, just like you were the fresh perspective on the MCU. Nice. So thank you all for listening. Thank both of you for being here with me on this podcast.
It was a pleasure.
I have been Gayfesh.
I'm Moss.
And I'm DemonMama.
And we will catch you in a galaxy far, far away. Bye.
Yo!